Hello, welcome to another episode of Underrated Modern Comic Books. For most of us that are a huge fan of Frank Miller in the 80s, surely we know his work in Daredevil, we know his work in Wolverine, and then when he moved over to DC, you have Ronin, and then The Dark Knight. Okay, those are very well known and most talk about in this hobby. Okay, you can't talk about Frank Miller without those four titles mentioned most of the time. But I think when this book came out, it was a big deal. It was not underrated, but over time, as time faded, as time passed, the book has faded in the discussion on the significance of this book. That's why I want to put this book in this video, because it was a big hit when it first came out. It was a big deal when it first came out, but over the past 10-15 years, I think it has been forgotten, and it is this one. You see this Give Me Liberty. You see this right here? That's Frank Miller's signature. Frank Miller went through many iterations of his signature. I prefer it when you can still read Frank Miller instead of the F and the M. Now, how do I know this is a legit signature? Well, I bought it with this little certificate. Okay, it's Certificate of Authenticity. This comic has been signed by and is from the personal collection of Frank Miller. It is guaranteed authentic by the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund. For those that have never heard of the Comic Book Defense Legal Fund, Legal Defense Fund, go Google it and you can read up and see why Frank Miller donated this book to the fund. Okay, but back to this book. Frank Miller was the writer only. You know, it would have been awesome if he was also the artist here, but he was the writer, and Dave Gibbons did the art. Wonderful job. Okay, I can't stress enough about the quality of the art and the story of this book. So it's not sure, I think we all would love to have Frank Miller did the art, but Dave Gibbons was no slouch. Okay, no slouch. Look at the high quality. Give you a little tease of what's inside. It is good. I mean, I can't say enough about how, one of the best thing about this hobby is be able to go back in time, pull out something that I have not read in 10-15 years and revisit it and re-enjoying it. When Frank Miller decided to leave DC and embark on this venture with Dark Horse, it was a huge deal. Dark Horse had been around for a few years before. I was a fan of Dark Horse from the very beginning. Okay, I bought the Aliens, I bought the Terminator books, I bought, when Dark Horse first launched, for those that remember in the late 80s, a lot of those movie adaptation titles, it was what they were doing, right? Terminators, Aliens, Predators. Yes, I bought those books because, at that point I was getting superhero fatigue, and it was nice to see something different. And Dark Horse gave me that. But this is when the sea changed for Dark Horse, in my opinion. For the historian out there that know more about Dark Horse, feel free to correct me, because this is the internet where people like to tell me I'm wrong. But I believe that this book launched Dark Horse into another level, because surely up until that point there's not that many creators with big names like Frank Miller, okay? And to have somebody like Frank Miller coming to your company and put out a title like this, this is a really good read. If you have never heard of Give Me Liberty, it's a 4-issue mini series, I guess you can call it. And it's this book came out in 1990, but the story was written in the near, not so far distant future, right? It's not like it's the 30 years in the future. I think it's like 1995, like only 5 years in the future, where it's a very different world. And it kind of remind me. I brought this book out after I started watching and reread the story after I saw the TV show on Amazon, Man from the High Castle, because it's an alternate world. Frank Miller is very political, so you can understand his take on where the world is, how messed up it can be. So it's a good read for those that have never laid their eyes on this, and it's fairly inexpensive. You can get a trade for $10 or something like that. But to me, it's a huge event in Dark Horse history and in non-Marvel and DC publishers. It's a huge deal, because when Frank Miller did this and was a huge success, I'm sure he made big bucks. Okay, and after this, many other talents came over to Dark Horse. Okay, but he was the first big gun to make the big jump. After that, you have Mignola, you have John Byrne, you have other people that came over to do other things like Hellboy, Next Man, things like that. But this came first. Okay, this came first in 1990, and over the past 20 years, I felt this book has kind of slowly faded in the discussion, in the talk about the hobby and Dark Horse and independent publisher. That's why I put this video together, because I really think it is a very significant book, underrated in its importance of Dark Horse and the success of Dark Horse since then. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.